You're listening to the Sisters in Loss podcast, a faith-based grief and loss podcast for Black women, where you will hear stories of miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, and infertility to learn there is a testimony in tragedy. You will learn how to heal, gain clarity, find hope and peace, and turn your pain into your purpose after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee. Welcome to episode 149 of the Sisters in Loss podcast. Imagine losing your sister to cancer and grieving her death. You found out you're pregnant with twins. Today's guest experienced just that in October 2019 when she found out she was carrying twin girls. During Trae Francois' 20-week ultrasound, she found out her cervix had shortened and doctors did not recommend a cerclage due to her high-risk twin pregnancy. She began taking some progesterone to strengthen her cervix and to stop it from continuing to shorten. It was on January 20th, 2020, when her water broke at 23 weeks along, that doctors had to make tough decisions on baby A, whose sac was ruptured due to premature rupture of the membranes, or PPROM. Baby girls Ava and Ari were born on January 22nd, 2020, and on January 25th, 2020, baby Ari went on to be with God in heaven. Ava continues to fight for her life in the NICU and is on track to come home in May 2020. In this episode, Trae takes us back on her journey to motherhood, her NICU stay in the midst of this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, and how she is grieving the loss of Ari while being strong for Ava. This episode is for you to listen to if you've experienced a twin loss and for understanding of what it is like to be in the NICU during this pandemic. Here is Trae Francois. Well, thank you so much, Trae, for being on the podcast.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
So I like to begin my interviews with you sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay. My name is Trae. I am originally from I'm originally from Atlanta. I moved to DC in 2014, the DMV area, Silver Spring, in 2014 for a job opportunity. I am a senior marketing associate at a large architecture firm in DC. I've been in the marketing industry in architecture for about 7 years now. I've been here since 2014, so that's what I've been doing. I also bartend on the side, so I have a part-time job up here because the area is extremely expensive. So you kind of have to have a couple of different hustles to make ends meet or to have a little extra money. And that's about it as far as what I do and where I'm from. With my pregnancy journey, I met my boyfriend in January of 2019, and I met him at my job at, as I said, I bartend part-time. So he came in one night. He and I hit it off rather quickly, and from that day on, we became inseparable. So my sister actually passed away at the end of February. So he was there with me through that whole time. It brought us extremely closer. Fast forward to, when did I get pregnant? Yes, fast forward to September. I was at work. I was feeling kind of funny. I was on my lunch break with my girl. We were at a bar having a couple of glasses of wine on our lunch break because we were having one of those weeks where we were just over everything and everybody. My period wasn't super late because I know that right before then, it's like a couple of cycles have been really irregular. So it was like a week late, and then it would be a week early, 2 prior cycles before the cycle, before my missed period due to my pregnancy. So I went to the CVS, got a pregnancy test, went back to work, was like, let me just take this for peace of mind. I don't think I'm really pregnant right now, but we'll just see. Ended up coming back positive. So I had to call him up, let him know, like, you know, we might have to buy another test, but I think I am pregnant. He was at work. He was like, oh, wow, okay, this is good. Like, this is great news. He was very happy about it from the beginning. It was unexpected. It wasn't planned, but it wasn't unwelcome either. So we go to the doctor 4 weeks after I find out I'm pregnant. I go to my OB, and in the sonogram room, the sonographer got quiet, and she said, oh, and we were like, oh, like, what's wrong? Like, what do you mean? Oh, is there not a heartbeat? Like, what's going on? And she said, no, it's 2. So we said, 2 what? And she said 2 sacks. And I was like, no way. She said, yes, y'all are having twins. I figured that somebody would have twins pretty soon because I've had a feeling. Congratulations. And right then and there, she told us that they would be identical. And she, you know, did her thing with the sonogram. She showed us the placenta, and she showed us the membrane and the 2 separate sacs, and we heard both of their heartbeats, and it was incredible. We went to go see my doctor. She told us that we were having monodi twins, which means that they share a placenta, but they were in 2 separate sacs. So there are 3 different levels of pregnancy, and my pregnancy was considered a mid-risk pregnancy. So it wasn't the riskiest type of twin pregnancy, but it still had a risk of twin-to-twin transfusion associated with it, since they would be sharing a placenta. So she let me know that I would have to go and see a maternal fetal medicine specialist in addition to having my regular OB appointments. Luckily, the maternal fetal medicine specialist office was literally right next door to my OB's office in the same building. So I went there, set up that appointment, and got in there, went to see him. He let us know, you know, like, we're going to become best friends because we're going to be seeing you every 2 weeks. And then once you get closer to your due date, we are going to start seeing you every week. And it, depending on how it goes, sometimes more than that. So we were like, great, you know, like, this is awesome. The more monitoring, the better. The more ultrasound pictures we'll have. Like, that's totally okay with us. So my pregnancy was pretty textbook up until, I would say, week 19. Before then, I was doing everything right. I stopped drinking, stopped going out. I was eating right, eating healthy, balanced diet, had all the snacks in my drawer at work, was taking it easy, wasn't doing much physical activity at all. But around week 19, so that was in December, right after I moved. So that would have been like the second week of December, second or third week of December. We go to my doctor's appointment, and it's a pretty routine doctor's appointment. All the ultrasounds, they're checking both of their heartbeats, strong heartbeats, they look good. Initially, baby B was a little behind baby A. But at that doctor's appointment, we had found out that she was, in fact, growing and catching up to her sister. By then, we knew that they were girls. So she was growing. Like, we were happy because, you know, they said she's catching up to her sister. Like, things are looking good. And so they got to my cervix. At every single maternal fetal medicine doctor's appointment, my cervix had to be checked. And at that appointment, the sonographer, she was a little quiet. And we just kind of got a vibe from her. So, you know, I looked at my boyfriend, and he looked at me, and, you know, I looked at her, and I said, is everything okay? She was like, well, your cervix is a little short. The doctor's going to come in here, and he's going to talk to you and let you know, like, what the options are and where we can go from here. So we said, okay, you know, fine. Great. So when the doctor came in, he basically told me that your cervix is about 4 centimeters long, and mine had shrunk to about 1.5 centimeters. So he said, your last visit, which was about 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, I'm sorry. He said your centimeters was at 4. He said now it's at 1.5 within a matter of 2 weeks. So that is a little alarming. But I'm not that alarmed because you haven't had any bleeding. You said that you haven't had any cramps. You haven't had any type of pain associated with preterm labor, or that would trigger me to tell you, okay, maybe this is a little serious. So he said, you have a couple options. Option one is we can put you on progesterone suppositories and just monitor your cervix very closely. Option two is we can do nothing and see if, and see how that progresses. You may just have a strong cervix. He said a lot of times a woman in a pregnancy, whether it's a singleton pregnancy or a twin pregnancy, they'll have a cervix that's shortened, and that little centimeter will stay until the week that it needs to stay, until like week 36, 37. And that's just what it is. Or he said, we can do a cerclage on you, which he did not recommend. He said out of the three options, that's the one that I'm the most hesitant about, because with twin pregnancies, research shows that it isn't the best option because it doesn't really make a difference. It in fact makes it worse. It may accelerate preterm labor. So, and another thing is that it's surgical. So my boyfriend and I had to think. He said, right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on progesterone suppositories for a week. You're going to come back in a week. We're going to measure your cervix, and we're going to go from there. If it gets short, then we'll know that we're going to have to do something. We're going to have a conversation. But if it stays the same, then we can go from there. So I got the suppositories, and then he had also gave me some type of medicine to take just in case I had contractions, which I wasn't having or anything like that. Took the suppositories vaginally for a week, went back, and the length of my cervix hadn't changed much. It hadn't lengthened, and it hadn't gotten any shorter. So during that week that I was taking the suppositories between visits, I was also researching and looking on whattoexpect.com. They have some really good forums. And then Baby Center has some really good forums, and just Googling and reading as many articles as I could about short cervixes in twin pregnancies. And I was getting a lot of different information, but the overall consensus was it happens a lot in twin pregnancies. About half of the women that I read about actually had an emergency cerclage placed in their cervix, in addition to bed rest, which my maternal fetal medicine specialist specifically said. He said, I'm not one to tell you to be on bed rest, because in my opinion, that's unethical. It doesn't really prevent preterm labor from what I've seen and from what I know. It doesn't prevent it at all. If you're going to go into labor, you're going to go into labor, whether you're in the bed, whether you're standing up, whether you're doing light duty. But he did say, what I do want you to do is take it easy. So as much as you can be off of your feet, be off of your feet. You can still go to work. Just make sure if you park far away, you can get dropped off. If you're out in the stores, don't be on your feet for too long. And when you're home, stay off your feet as much as you can. I was already doing that. So it was like, okay, great. So fast forward to when I went back to my second appointment for him to check my cervix. It hadn't done anything. It hadn't moved. And he told me that, and I'm sorry. So I was researching, and I heard about an Arab pessary. A lot of women said, half the women said they got a cerclage, half the women said they got an Arab pessary. So at the appointment, we let him know that flat out we didn't want to get the cerclage. I read a lot of success stories, but I also read a lot of stories where women with twin pregnancies had a cerclage and it didn't do anything. It didn't make a difference. Right after the cerclage, they either got pregnant or they got an infection or one of the sacs broke. So it was just not the way to go for us. So when I bought the pessary to him, he said that he hadn't thought about that. He said, wow, that's a really good idea, because it actually is like a suction for your cervix, and it actually like suctions it holds up your pelvic floor. So he said, I apologize and I'm actually quite embarrassed that I did not think about that, but that's a good idea, and I think it's worth a try, especially and I'm a lot more comfortable with that because one, it's not surgical, so it's not invasive at all. It's just something that we insert vaginally, and then you can keep doing the progesterone suppositories, and we'll keep measuring out your cervix from there. So fortunately, my boyfriend, he has a couple of OBGYNs in his family, and we reached out to them, and they basically said the same thing that my maternal fetal medicine specialist told me, like, bed rest is unethical. They don't really think it makes a difference. Just stay off of your feet as much as you can. The progesterone is a good idea. It's what I should be doing. And the cerclage was not an option that they would recommend to anybody, especially anybody in a twin pregnancy and as late as I was in the pregnancy, because by then I was at week about 20. I was at week 20. Yeah. So we said, okay, great. Like, this is the consensus. We're going to go. And they also said the pessary. They said with the pessary, that's a really good idea. It's not invasive. It's not a cerclage. Go with that. You're on the right track, and a lot of them said kudos to you because you were proactive in doing the research, because had you not done your research, it sounds like your doctor wouldn't have even known to give you that option. His only two options were progesterone and or cerclage. So we got the pessary put in. We were very confident about that. Everything seemed to be going good. Up until I felt fine. Even when they inserted it, it felt like, I thought it was huge. First of all, we thought that it was going to be like a tiny donut, but it ended up being almost the size of the palm of my hand. And, but once they inserted it, I didn't feel anything. It was very comfortable. It moved with me. Got up, went to work like, a regular day. Things were going good up until, let's see, the week before I went into the hospital. No, I'm sorry. 2 days before I went into the hospital, I started having a lot of wetness. So the first day I figured, it's probably from the progesterone, because he did tell me with the progesterone suppositories, you're going to have an increased amount of discharge. But if it gets to be a lot, call me and or go to the ER. So it wasn't too much. It was a little more than the typical discharge that I had been getting all throughout the pregnancy. But then the day before I went into the hospital, so that would have been January 20th. So the 19th. On the 19th, I called him. It was Martin Luther King Day, and I was at home. I called his office because about midway through the day, I felt like I was having a little too much discharge. It's like I was going through pads at a faster rate than I was going through in previous days, and something just wasn't sitting right with my spirit. I called him and I left a message with the nurse. He was supposed to call me back, but he never did. So Tuesday comes around and I told my boyfriend, I said, I think I might go to the doctor's office, get off a little early, and we can go just pop up over there, because he did say, if something does happen, or if you want to just pop up, if you can't get an appointment, just feel free to come in. I'll try to squeeze you in the best way that I can. So I told him, I think I either want to go to the doctor, get off a little early and go late afternoon, or go first thing Wednesday morning. So he said, okay, fine. I'm at work, and at around 12 o'clock noon, I get up to go to the bathroom. And while I'm on the toilet, it's like I feel a gush of water. Not it wasn't that much. No, I'm sorry. I went to the bathroom and I used the bathroom, and it was like a regular bathroom break. But then when I went to my desk and I sat down, immediately after I sat down, it was like a gush of water. So then I kind of repositioned myself. I said, oh no, this isn't right. So as I was getting my purse together to get another pad to go back into the bathroom, it was like a second gush of water. So I run to the bathroom. By then, the back of my pants are soaked, and I mean like wet. And I'm on the toilet, and as I'm trying to change out my pad, it's the third gush of water. So my boyfriend, who luckily worked 3 blocks away from me, I called him. I said, I need to go to the ER right now. So he said, okay, I'm coming. So got my things together, told my boss I'm going to the ER. I'll keep you posted. Got to GW Hospital in DC and was taken up to labor and delivery immediately when they found out that I was 23 weeks pregnant with twins. Got me in a room and got me hooked up to all the ultrasound and everything. The doctor said it looks like your sac around baby A has ruptured. So they took samples of the fluid that was in my vagina. They said that it does look like it pooled, and we're going to, it was like a pool of fluid, and we're going to take a sample of that. We're going to run it just to see if it's infection or anything like that. So they hooked me up to the heartbeat monitors that monitored their heartbeats and monitor my contractions. And they ran some tests on me. They said that the test came back negative. Like, it didn't show any signs of infection or anything like that. But you're going to have to stay here until you give birth, because what is clear is that the sac around baby A has ruptured, and you can go into, what they didn't tell me was that I could go into labor at any time. They kind of made it seem like, okay, like, you're going to stay here until you know what I'm saying, until you give birth. So at first I was really like, oh my God, I was blown. Like, I'm going to have to stay in this hospital for however long. But immediately after that, I said, you know what? Whatever I have to do to save my baby girls, like, that's what I'm going to have to do. If I just have to be in here for another 10 weeks, then I'm just going to have to be in here for another 10 weeks. Like, that's fine. They got us set up in the antepartum section of the hospital, of the maternity ward. And we were seen by a slew of different doctors. Luckily, their lead maternal fetal medicine specialist was very well acquainted with my maternal fetal medicine specialist. So we were able to get my records over from my OB office and my MFM's office over to the hospital so that everyone could be on the same page, and so they could start coordination of care and everything like that. And that night so the first night I was in the hospital, I got my first steroid shot. They let me know, like, just in case you go into labor, this is for the development of the baby's lungs, so that they can kind of speed up and just get a little stronger, a little quicker. So we thought, okay, great. And that was night one. The second day in the hospital, the neonatologist, they came to see us. They let us know, like, I was 23 weeks and 1 day pregnant with twins. So they let me know, if you go into labor within the next week, you're right at that stage of viability. Viability is considered 24 weeks. So they said, if you go into labor this week, because I was 23 and 1, 23 weeks and 1 day. They said the chances of your babies are going to be slim, and they were like, we're not trying to be discouraging, but we're just going to tell you the facts, like, at 23 weeks, their lungs aren't that developed. Like, we gave you steroids. We're going to give you a second dose of steroids to help with that. But their breathing, it's a chance that they could, either one of them or both of them could pass away. It's a chance that one of them or both of them could have cerebral palsy. They just came in and basically told us everything that could go wrong with them, which on one hand I appreciate, because, and I know that's just how doctors operate. That's just what they do. They have to tell you the worst outcome just in case it might happen, because it's a very real possibility that it would. But they said, we have seen twins born this early survive. Both of them survive and both of them be fine. We've seen both of them survive, and maybe one of them may have a degree of cerebral palsy and the other one doesn't. So we're just going to hope and pray, that you bake them as long as you can. So of course my boyfriend and I were like, we're being very positive. Like, I'm going to hold them in, like, as long as I can. Like, I'm not going to move from here. I'm going to do everything I need to do, which is chill out. So they say, it's a great attitude to have. Like, good, we'll come and talk to you later. So later on that night, I got my second and last steroid shot, and we were getting ready to get comfortable and watch TV. We had just ate. I had to go to the bathroom. So when I went to the bathroom, I was wiping myself, and I felt something bulging out of my lady part. So I thought, maybe I'm tripping right now, but maybe I'm not. So I was like, oh my God. At that point, it's like, I knew. I was like, Jesus, I'm going to go into labor tonight. Like, this is it. This is a baby part sticking out of me. So I called the nurse, and when she came in, she looked, and she called in the doctor. The doctor immediately came in. She said, okay, we see something bulging out. I'm going to do a brief exam. and we'll see what's going on. She said, if this is apart from your baby, then, or if this is one of the girls, you're going to go. She was like, we're delivering these babies tonight. I knew, you know what I'm saying? And sure enough, she said, that's either a hand or a foot. And literally within 10 seconds, it went from my boyfriend, the doctor, the nurse, and I in my room to about 10 people in the room. They're wheeling me out into the operating room. They have to put me under general anesthesia because of how fast they have to get the babies out now. So my boyfriend had to be in the waiting room, but they had a doctor in there, you know, to comfort him and to walk him through everything. And, you know, like they were putting me under. They said that both of us were very calm. They said, you know, like, you're doing great. Stay calm. I wasn't crying or anything like that. I was just praying, like, you know, just like, God, please, like, it just help me get through this. Like, just make sure that my babies are good. Like, you know, like, whatever's in your will is in your will. Like, I trust you. Just, you know, get us through this. So I wake up about an hour and a half later, and I'm in the recovery section. And my boyfriend shows me 2 pictures of our little girls, and they look quite bigger than what I thought they would, because my stomach wasn't super huge. It's like you could tell I was kind of big for where I was at. But in my opinion, I would look at other pictures and say, oh my goodness, they're much bigger than I am. But it turns out that my placenta was actually in the front. So the babies were more so in the back. And that's why I wasn't showing as much, but they looked good. He said, you know, they look good. They got them intubated very quickly. They're in the NICU right now. I had to have an emergency C-section, so I was very loopy when I woke up. I was in pain. It was very painful. They got me to our postpartum room. I was on all type of medicine. Had a decent night's sleep because I was doped up on everything. And then the very next morning, the nurse came to check me out, check my incision. They said it looked good. And we went to go see the babies in the NICU. They were very tiny. You know, I didn't really know what to expect, but, you know, they were the most beautiful things that I had ever seen. And we were just very happy and grateful that we were at the hospital and that they were as swift and as quick as they were to get me in and out of the operating room, and they were there. So from there, the doctor sat us down and they, you know, told us, you know, it's going to be an uphill battle with both of them because they were born at 23 weeks and viability is at 24. So they said, you know, we're going to do the best that we can. And of course, like, we're going to follow your lead, but let's just stay hopeful and hope that everything goes well, but just know that it's going to be a long journey. So that was on January 22nd was when I gave birth to them. And they were due May 19th. So I was a good 4 months, a good 4 months, but they were 4 months early. So it was pretty heavy for us because, you know, we were like, oh my God. And of course, it's like I was blaming myself, like, what did I do wrong, God? Like, you know, like, let's just hope and pray, like, they stay the way they are. Like, we know it's going to be an uphill battle. We know they're going to have to be in here until May, but we're going to stay positive. We're going to stay prayerful. Like, God got us. By then, everyone had heard. So my mother, my niece, and my family who still lives in Atlanta, they were buying plane tickets to come to DC. My boyfriend is from Brooklyn, so his family was en route to come to us. And our friends in the area were rallying with us. They were all at the hospital, and this was right before everything with all this craziness broke out. So there wasn't strict visitation policy or anything like that. So everyone was there. And the first night, so the first day, both of them were doing good. You know, they had strong heartbeats. They were breathing, although they were intubated. But they did say that baby B, they said she's small. They told us that from the beginning. And we named them Ava and Ari. With Ari, they said, you know, she is very tiny. So it's going to be your baby Ava. It's going to be hard, but she's a little bigger. She's a little more developed. Ari, she's tiny. They were born at Ava was 400. I'm sorry, Ari was 480 grams, and Ava was 520 grams. So at birth, Ari was like 15 ounces, and Ava was 1 pound, 3 ounces. So yeah, so it's like we had the babies. You know, day one they're doing good, but day two is kind of when all hell broke loose with Ari, and they basically let us know that she had a brain bleed. It was they call it IVF, and I forgot what it stands for. I think it's I forget what it's called, but basically it was grade 3. It was a grade 3 brain bleed, and at that point they told us, you know, her heart rate was starting to go down, and it was very traumatizing. I was in the hospital for 4 days, and on their day 2 of life, it seemed like every 3 hours, one of the neonatologists were coming into the room to tell us, you know, you may want to come to the NICU because Ari's heart rate was just going up and down, up and down, up and down. And every time it went down, they would tell us you might want to come because it doesn't look like she's going to make it. And on day of life, still on day of life 2, that evening, we talked to one of the lead doctors, and she basically told us, she said, you know, we're going to do everything we can to save her, but she has a grade 3 brain bleed, and she's going to have cerebral palsy. The degree of that, we don't know, but we can definitively tell you that she will have this disease. So we're going to give y'all the option to tell us where y'all want to go. You know, of course, we're going to follow your lead, but they started bringing up all this stuff about quality of life and, you know, just think about that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, like, I'm not hearing all that. I don't care what my baby has. She deserves a chance. So y'all do whatever y'all have to do to save her and make sure she's good. And my boyfriend was on the same page with me. You know, he was like, yeah, like, absolutely. But at the same time, she said, we also wanted to keep in mind, you know, like, if she was in pain or anything like that, did we want her to have to go through something like that? So by then we had told all of our family, and they were very supportive with whatever decision we decided to go through with. But on day of life 3 is when her heart rate kind of steadily was between 60 and 50, and her little organs were shutting down. So, you know, the doctors told us it's not really much more we could do at this point with her body, with everything that we're doing. She's at max. She's at max right now. We can't do anything else. If her heart rate continues to drop, what do y'all want us to do? Do y'all want us to resuscitate her, which they did not recommend? They said she's very, very small. She's very fragile. If we resuscitate her, we can break one of her ribs. We can break her entire rib cage. We don't, you know what I'm saying? We don't recommend that. So we came to the decision that if her heart rate dropped below the threshold, that we did not want them to resuscitate her. We wanted her to go and meet God. And ultimately, that's what happened the next day. She ended up passing away on January 25th, so 3 days after they were born. And that was a pretty hard day, you know, having one baby that was, we got a chance to hold her, and they were very compassionate. The NICU staff, the entire staff at the hospital was amazing, very comforting. We got her baptized right before they took her off they took all the tubes out, and they took her off her machine. We made sure that we got her baptized, and the priest was there. He prayed with us, and we got to hold her as she took her last breath. And from there, we had her cremated. And then, you know, of course, like, we're grieving, and it was absolutely heartbreaking and traumatizing. And we knew immediately we had to get into therapy, but we also knew that we had another baby that we had to stay strong for. So Ava is now at week 32 of life, and she's doing very well. She is on track to being released from the hospital in May on their due dates or around their due dates. She didn't really have any big complications in regards to in regards to like what she could have had. Like, she didn't require any major surgeries. She hasn't had any type of infection. She's actually progressing very well. Like, she surprised her doctor. She surprised everybody in the NICU with her progress and everything like that. But that itself is the process and an adjustment. But like grieving one baby and having another baby in the NICU. But overall, she's doing good. And ultimately, I was diagnosed with PPROM, which is preterm premature rupture of membranes. And they said that with twin pregnancies, it's pretty common. You know, they were like, it's nothing that you did. It's nothing that you could have done differently because you were doing everything right. This just happens. And, you know, sometimes it seals up by itself. But ultimately, the majority of the time, once that happens, you go into labor within 48 to 72 hours. And I went into labor the very next night, in addition to having an incompetent cervix. So, yeah, that's my story on my babies.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing this, Trae. So you mentioned with Ari, you got her cremated. Were you able to have like a memorial for her?
No, we haven't had a memorial yet because we haven't had an opportunity where all of our family was up here together. When we do have the memorial, which we're planning on doing that. We want everybody to be here so that we could all have that moment together. It's like, it's very hectic trying to get two families that live in two different states in one area, at the same time. But we are planning on doing that. And then we were planning on doing it earlier, but then all this crazy stuff with the COVID, you know, is going on. So now nobody's traveling. And then my niece is also an RN down in Atlanta. So she couldn't make it up here. And then a lot of my cousins are nurses, and my boyfriend's family's from New York. So they're really quarantined. Everybody's quarantined, but we had something planned for this month, but now we kind of have to improv and go with the timeline of when the restrictions let up with all this. But we definitely will have a memorial for her. We haven't done anything yet, though.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And I hope that baby Ava's home so that you all can have a memorial with her being there too. So this is unusual and uncertain times right now. You mentioned about family being everywhere and we're all quarantined. How has it been going into the NICU? Because I'm assuming that you're back to work and then you're still visiting Ava daily, weekly, however often as you can. How has it been going into the NICU, into the hospital through all this COVID-19 and coronavirus mayhem that's going on?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's my anxiety level. Everyone's anxiety is pretty high. You know what I'm saying? But mine in particular, with having to go into a hospital and having to go into the NICU where, you know, these immunocompromised little angels are, it's like everybody's kind of like, oh my goodness. Like, I go straight to the hospital and then back home. It's like right before I go, I take a shower. I get in my car and I head there. We have to get our temperatures taken. Her daddy can't actually be in there. It can only be the mom. So that was kind of an ouch moment for us. Before we could go in and out of the hospital, in and out of the NICU. Now, once you're in there, you have to stay in there. And once you leave, that's it. You can't come back in. We have to wear a mask as soon as we walk in there. They're taking all the proper steps and precautions that they should take, which I'm very grateful for. You know, even though it sucks that her dad can't be in there, we totally understand, because at the end of the day, it's like, you don't know who has this. Now we know that this stuff is like basically airborne, so you can kind of get it from anywhere. So the hospital's mitigating as best as they can. And it is very anxiety inducing. I don't go anywhere. I'm actually not at work. I didn't go back to work. I haven't gone back to work. My job has since transitioned to everyone's teleworking, but I'm still not teleworking yet. Um, I'm taking an extended leave until after she gets out of the NICU because I like to be there. When I am in the NICU, I'm there for 6 and 7 hours at a time. And that, I don't know how that would work out with me working, and everyone was just in agreement that, you can go back to work once she's out of the NICU, once she's in some type of routine, which probably wouldn't be until September. So in that respect, I'm very, happy that I made that decision, because I made that decision prior to all of this craziness happening. And I've kind of been social distancing since I've been pregnant. So I haven't really been going out. People haven't really been coming over like that. I've been in the house, and that's the way I'm keeping it. If I do go out, it's for something that's absolutely necessary. And half the time I'll stay in the car, and my mom will go and run to the grocery store and get some stuff, or like my boyfriend will go and get some stuff. But it is very much kind of just it makes you very nervous, because it's like I'm extra careful. Like, I don't want nobody coming close to me. If somebody's on the elevator, I'll just let them go up, and I'll wait until an elevator comes that's clear. It's a lot. Everyone's pretty nervous. The nurses are nervous. The doctors are nervous. They verbally said, told me it's nerve-wracking. It's like they have to watch everything that they do, especially with not only being in the NICU, but going home to their families and then coming back to the NICU, because it's different when you're dealing with babies versus adults. It's still a terrible situation across the board, but you have to be extra careful with these little babies.
Absolutely. And I'm thank you for so much for sharing that and bringing light to that, because I think that'll open a light up to a lot of people who are currently pregnant as well. Not necessarily their babies are in the NICU, but just the precautions that a lot of pregnant women are going to have to take and do things differently, especially birthing this summer and this fall. Last question I have for you is just, as you are going through your grieving process, because you're still going through it with having your baby in the NICU, what encouraging words can you leave with the listeners, the moms who have gone through an incompetent cervix or PPROM, and NICU moms that are out there? What encouraging words can you leave with them?
Keep God in your heart. Like, honestly, I've always been a spiritual person. I've always been not necessarily a religious person, but I am very spiritual. I believe in God. I don't go to church as much as I would like to, but I tell people all the time, or lately I've been telling people, like, I don't think I've prayed and talked to God as much as I have in my whole life as I have this past, July, almost 2.5 months. But some words of encouragement would just be, just stay positive. It can be very difficult. It can be very discouraging when you hear something like incompetent cervix. Like, no woman wants to be told anything is incompetent when it comes to her having a child and her body. It's like, don't blame yourself. Leave room to love yourself. Leave room for love. Leave room for peace. Find peace as hard as it may be. Keep a good headspace, keep your vibrations high, keep your spirits high, talk to people, let people know how you feel. Don't keep anything bottled up, because that does not help. Allow people to let you lean or allow yourself to lean on people when you have to. Surround yourself by good family, good friends, and just stay positive and really keep God first. Like, I journal all the time now. It's like I have to let my feelings out when I am in like a rough space. Like, just when everything feels heavy in my heart, I pray. I listen to scriptures. I read my Bible. I read stories of encouragement. I talk to people who uplift me, who, keep me grounded, and just stay positive. Keep the vibrations high, as hard as it may be, because the NICU can be a very traumatizing space in itself. A difficult pregnancy, whether it be dealing with PPROM or an incompetent cervix, it can be a lot of weight on you, a lot of negative weight. At the end of the day, God is in control, and our lives were written before we were even conceived, and he's in control, and he will never give us anything that we can't handle, even though sometimes we wish he didn't trust us so much. He's always in our corner, and he got us. And like, you'll be all right. You'll be okay.
Amen. Well, thank you so much, Trae. Where can we connect with you after this episode? Because we definitely want to see you bring this baby girl home.
Oh, yes. So I'll be posting. I haven't posted very much on my Instagram, but my Instagram is at Traeshawn. It's TraeShawn is my name. Nothing creative or anything like that. I'll be posting about when I do bring her home, or when it gets closer to us bringing her home in May. I'll definitely be posting updates, and from then on out, we'll be posting every single milestone that she made.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for sharing your story with us. This has been a blessing.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much for this platform.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. For show notes and more information on today's guest, go to sistersinlost.com. If you have not joined our online community, go to sistersinlost.com, as well as sign up for our newsletter. We want you to be a part of the community so you can know all of the events that we have planned on as Sisters in Lost. Go to sistersinlost.com, sign up for our newsletter, join our online community, and stay connected with us. Talk to you soon.